Welcome to another exciting episode of the Entrepenudist Podcast, the place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. Once again, I'm your host, Randolph Love III, and we have another amazing entrepreneur on. Definitely somebody that you're going to want to stick around and listen to. And before we bring them on, just to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Shield Wolf Strongholds, a wealth growth and protection company when it comes to retirement planning, estate planning, and employee benefits. If the plan ain't Shield Wolf, the plan ain't strong. Our guest today, Cary Sparrow, founder, CEO of WageScape, a former U.S. Navy officer who served on several nuclear submarines, turned entrepreneur with 35 plus years combined of engineering, military, consulting, technology, and operations leadership in achieving organizational growth, makes him a guest of value to HR leaders and other decision makers wanting to navigate the labor market. Cary is paving the way for HR professionals and consulting firms to predict the future of wage pay. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Cary Sparrow. Absolutely, man. And is there nothing that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started?
Well, that list is really long. My challenge is the opposite. I keep forgetting more every day. I'm at that age. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I think one of the things when I started WageScape, that I came out of a corporate role. Before that, I was in a big consulting firm. And before that, I was in the Navy, as you said. And in those jobs, you get paid to find risk and get rid of it, right? And you get paid to have certainty. And if you don't have certainty, to at least put boundaries around it. So as a leader, your approach has got to be totally different than like in a corporate environment where you move away from risk. With the leader, the biggest risk is that you're going to go out of business in a small company. And so you got to move fast. And that means you got to, understand that you don't know everything and operate in a way that allows you to figure out what's really critical while not getting killed by the other stuff that you don't know. Totally different mindset. And so that's something that I have to remind myself of. Now, I've been in it for 10 years. I still have to remind myself of that every day. Is move fast. You don't know everything. That's okay. Move fast.
And speaking of moving away from risk, when you're in a submarine, it's impossible to move away from that risk. Okay, whenever I meet somebody that is in the military or former military or veteran, I don't typically say thank you for your service. I ask them, why did you join? What made you join?
My family has a pretty long history of serving the country. And my dad was in the Marines, did a full career there. My grandfather was a decorated Army surgeon in World War II, served in the Pacific. So it goes back a ways. So I was always around kind of the military and exposed to kind of military ideas and people. The idea of serving the country was pretty appealing. But frankly, in high school, there were some other factors involved too. First of all, both the Navy and the Air Force offered to pay for my college. So that was pretty appealing. And the ability to go in and go interesting places and work, doing interesting stuff, like what the Navy offered was pretty appealing to a young kid out of high school too. And so those all combined. Interestingly enough, it's been over 30 years since I got out of the military, and I still think about experiences in the military every single day. Every day, I think about something that happened when I was in the Navy. And so really long lasting. It served me really well over the years.
And I can imagine, man, what's the craziest nuclear submarine story that you got?
Oh, I can't tell you any of the crazy. They're either too classified or too vulgar.
Yeah. And because I imagine there must be so much psychological type of test that must go on before you let somebody get that deep in the water in such a confined space. That would be the worst place to figure out that you have claustrophobia, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, luckily the submarine force is an all-volunteer force, and so nobody gets on a submarine without having volunteered to do so. So, you got to be kind of a special kind of, person that doesn't know themselves if you get on a submarine and you're claustrophobic. So that part, there's a number of things that happen before you ever show up. First of all, you got to want to be there, which, even a basic level of knowledge says you got to be okay being in tight spaces. You got to be okay with pretty high pressure situations. So before you even show up, you're put in training that's pretty high pressure, frankly. And then for officers in particular, you go through an extra round of psychological evaluations, because not only do officers have to operate and lead in a high pressure confined environment for long periods of time, officers are also responsible to the extent, if they are on board, for the safeguarding and of nuclear weapons and of state secrets. And so there's an extra level that goes on there as well.
Do you not use any of the lessons that you learned during that time while you're working with AI, artificial intelligence?
From a leadership standpoint, I use the leadership skills I developed in the Navy every single day. Now as it relates to AI specifically, that's an interesting field. So the ability to look at, an ambiguous situation and apply kind of systems thinking to that is absolutely something that the military does. Just happens to be that the ambiguity is coming from artificial intelligence right now. And the scenarios are developing really, really rapidly. But yeah, the skills, when I was in my 20s, I never really thought about the kind of skills I was learning and whether or not they were applicable. So many people, when they get out of the military, think, well, I don't have any skills that are useful outside of the military. And they couldn't be more wrong. The ability to stay cool under pressure, the ability to show up to work every day, the ability to, lead others at a very young age. It doesn't matter whether you're an officer or not. Most people, from very early on in their military careers are leading other people. And the ability to manage, demanding schedules, the ability to deal with shifting priorities, the ability to work with all kinds of levels of individual. All this stuff is essential in almost any kind of role with responsibility. It's all stuff you learn in the military. So, I tell people there's lots of skills you get in the military. You just don't know how to talk about them in the right way to appeal to folks outside of the military. And the folks outside of the military have no idea what you do, so they don't really know what kind of questions to ask either. So that's a big, that's a whole big area of opportunity, I think. But every single day I use what I learned in the military. I was, for all intents and purposes, I was a nuclear operator when I first started off, because a submarine, 60% of a submarine is a nuclear power plant. So you learn how to do that. And then the other 40% is, highly classified, state-of-the-art, operational, fighting and intelligence gathering platform. And you learn how to do that by the time I was 25. I was running stuff in that kind of environment. And so do I do nuclear engineering now? No, I don't. Do I manage really complex schedules with all kinds of different people with lots of different backgrounds that need to all be aligned in the same direction and have to cope with changing situations and things that go wrong when you don't expect them to? Yeah, absolutely. I deal with that every day. That's the essence of what I learned, in the Navy, stand and watch back in a power plant. So.
And speaking of fighting, right? A lot of people can consider recruiting like a war, right? Definitely. They even have the top recruiters seeking the top help. They call them headhunters, right?
Yeah.
How is AI disrupting the recruiting in the war for talent?
It's playing out day by day, frankly. And there's parts of the world, there's companies that are at the bleeding edge of using AI for recruiting in ways that won't show up in other companies for another, year or so. So all you got to do is look around you at who's kind of on the front edge to see what's what's happening. Some of the obvious things that are better are the ability to really understand what you're looking for, what's important in a role and where to find it, the ability to tailor jobs in a way that you can access talent that maybe was not accessible before, someone in a different location, someone with a different background. Now artificial intelligence is helping to take things out of jobs that get in the way of folks with those characteristics from really thriving. So the talent pool is opening up. The tools available to candidates are getting a lot more sophisticated, which is creating a nightmare for recruiters because now people are using AI models to write their resumes, and so they're saying exactly what the recruiters are trained to look for, which means that now they've got to flood. How do you differentiate? In that kind of situation, it's getting really, really challenging. Same is true on the marketing side, by the way, because recruiting has got a big marketing component. And so there's like good and bad that's playing out every day. It's getting a lot more chaotic. Truth is getting a lot harder to discern. At the same time, there's huge opportunities. So, the other thing about AI that people close to it really understand, the people not so close to it don't really get the implications of, is that it's changing so fast. The product cycles on AI are measured in weeks. Traditionally, they've been measured in years. And so, when you've got a product life cycle that, is obsolete a month from now, and you've got a new generation of capability every single month over month over month, the capabilities are astounding. For example, there are companies now that will rent you AI employees that are fully functioning employees. They could be on this call with us right now, and you wouldn't know that they were an AI, right? And they could be fully contributing to the conversation. They could be, a frontline recruiter screening folks, and you wouldn't even know it. And they would work 24/7 with no breaks. They would keep track of all the to-dos. They would do the to-dos to the extent they could for you. They're like a great research assistant, frontline recruiter, executive assistant, operations manager, marketing manager, revenue ops specialist, all kinds of, and the number of jobs is growing. Application developer is there's a ton of application development that's now being done by AI. So the nature of the work has changed really dramatically. So what do you recruit to now? And also, what do you use to recruit? So if you've got AI agents that can basically do 90% of the first 2 to 3 interactions with a candidate, that fundamentally changes what the role of a recruiting team needs to look like. Not the outcomes they need to achieve, but who's doing what. And that's, like I said, what's present today is the worst it's ever going to be. I mean, think about that. And what was present yesterday was worse than it is today, right? And it just, every single day, it's getting better and better and better. So folks that are skeptical about what AI can do, I would just challenge them to take a step back and remember, today, it's light years ahead of where it was a year ago, and tomorrow it's going to be even further. You're not going backwards on this.
And I'm with you, Cary. You can't fight the sands of change, right? And I'm utilizing AI as much as I can, and we already have in our agendas for next quarter to utilize it more and more. But just like you said, every day is getting better and better. Somebody else is looking at the same data and saying every day is getting worse and worse. I'm going to lose my job because of AI. What do you say to those people?
I would say you're right to be worried, to be honest with you. I think that AI represents a huge opportunity. The way that we think about work and life 2 to 3 years from now is going to be very, very different than the way that we think about it right now. So what does that mean for all of us as individuals? You can get ahead of that and take advantage of the opportunities that come up, or you can be behind it. And have to react to the opportunities that other people are taking advantage of. And people, the people who are kind of in Pollyanna will say, well, it all balances out. AI represents the biggest opportunity mankind has ever in the history of mankind faced. And it's going to be disruptive. There are going to be jobs, then work that's not needed anymore. And the catastrophists say AI is going to destroy all the jobs and there's going to be nothing left except billionaires running the world. And I don't think either one of those is necessarily right. But I do think if we look at trends that have created big opportunities, use globalization as an example. Yeah, it created lots of opportunities. There's lots of businesses that operate in ways that couldn't exist, 20 years ago. But a whole bunch of people got displaced along the way. And I think the same thing's going to be true for AI. And I think it's going to come faster than people were expecting. If I had to, right now we're recording this call in late 2025. And I would say that, things are going to start to get even more apparent in the first quarter of 2026 and definitely by the second quarter of 2026 as companies start applying their budget assumptions into workforce reductions. Because if you're a CFO or CEO and someone comes and tells you, I can give you an AI agent that will do 80% of the task of this one position for 10% of the cost. Okay, that's a no-brainer. At that level, which is I'll get rid of the position and then I'll figure out what the 20% is that still needs to be done, and I'll figure out a different way to do it. It's a no-brainer. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot of that washing out as we move into the new budget year.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because like I said, I'm already attributing time, energy, and effort next quarter to see how that works. Because and for me, lucky enough, I'm not letting nobody go, but I was going to bring on somebody new. But if we can train AI instead, somebody just lost a job.
Right. So we're a small company, and I deliberately built the company to scale. I didn't want to have to, grow the workforce 100 times in order to grow the revenue 100 times. So that's even more possible now. We've got AI agents that are doing stuff that I don't have to bring in staff to do. I know exactly where I do want to bring in staff. It's in the areas that I can't have an AI agent do. But in everything else, if an AI agent can do it, then that's what I'm doing. And a lot of what gets done, especially when you're in growth mode, frankly, AI agents can do. Whether you're talking about marketing and SEO, whether you're talking about CRM, RevOps, not so much recruiting for us, but recruiting if you're in the mode of hiring, a lot of project management. I don't need an executive assistant because AI takes care of that for me now. They keep me more organized than I ever could be. So yeah, you're exactly right. I'm kind of at the point where it's like I tell people AI isn't taking away any of my staff. It's just allowing me to not have to add staff. So
exactly.
To your point.
And then elevate and delegate. Because
right.
I always look for the silver lining. These people who, they're very good at what they do, but if we can train AI to automate those mundane daily tasks that they were doing, that's when we can elevate them to a higher position.
We call it our assistant, right? Everyone on my team, we have our assistants. And so in meetings, you'll hear people say, can you have your assistant go look this up? And then like 3 minutes later on the call, they come back with everything we need to know about that. And the assistant, of course, are these AI models, right? It's like the running joke in the company.
Hopefully they're saying please and thank you for whenever the AI overlords take over, right?
Exactly. But there's a ton of stuff in my company, even like there's a lot that has to be done. We collect data from all over the world, literally hundreds of thousands of different websites every day. We collect data on millions and millions, tens of millions of jobs every month, and we have to consolidate it together. We have to organize it. We have to analyze it. And in the past, being able to take data from one source and integrate it in with another source was something that would take us a month or more to figure out how to do that. And with AI, we now can do it in a matter of like an hour or less in a lot of cases. So there's lots of ways we use it behind the scenes.
A lot of time saved.
Yeah, a lot of time saved. And we're just one kind of little tiny application, one little tiny use case. Multiply that out across every, function in a company everywhere in the world. And that's the kind of impact that is starting to happen. So
wage transparency and market transparency in general, good thing or bad thing?
I think it's a great thing. I think it's an uncomfortable thing for lots of companies, but they got other things to be uncomfortable about too. And I don't think, folks, we're like at the top of the second inning on the whole, game around wage transparency. I don't think people fully understand how to take advantage of that yet. And we're definitely a long way from a world where it's not even thought about. It's just kind of a given, but it's, I think, really powerful. It's powerful in ways that people always think about, like the job seekers and having, wage transparency, or their employees being able to see what, positions are paying and discern from that what other, employees might be getting paid, and how that can be kind of threatening and uncomfortable from a management standpoint. Oh, that's true, but you learn to adapt your leadership approach with all of that. But, here are some applications around transparency that I don't think people have really thought about. For example, it is entirely possible, and in fact, we can do it at WageScape, to figure out who has the most supportive environment from a career standpoint for people based on their gender or ethnicity or age. Okay. So who gives the best career opportunities as evidenced by career advancement? Who gives the best skills development opportunities as evidenced by the skills that people actually have? Who, and as evidenced by the rate at which people leave at certain points in their career. All of these things now are frankly available in the public. If you know where to look, and if you've got the right analytic tools, these are closely guarded secrets in most companies. I mean, I remember when I was on the corporate side, you couldn't use TNT to blow open the safe that had the information about career pathing based on gender or ethnicity or age, right? It was closely guarded. Mm-hmm. It still is in a lot of cases. But to be honest with you, it's kind of a moot point, because all you got to do is look at people's career profiles, which are freely available online, and figure all that out. And if you've got the right analytics to ingest, hundreds of thousands of profiles, you can figure it out. So it's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from being able to say, this company does better than this company with naming the companies. People haven't decided to do that yet, but it's just a matter of time. There's a lot that people regard as closely held secrets, within organizations that, frankly, that emperor has no clothes, because those secrets are easily discernible from what's available in the public. And there's lots of folks like us that know how to go after those kinds of insights, and there's a market that'll pay for it. So that's all, an aspect of transparency. One of the things recruiters love about our data is they can see what other companies are hiring for and what they're likely to be paying for certain jobs. They love that level of transparency, and frankly, they're surprised by it. And once they learn to, once they get their head around what it represents, they very rapidly, recruiting teams will incorporate that into how they operate on a day-to-day basis, especially recruiting teams that are part of a firm, because then that becomes a really powerful business development capability. They can go and they can figure out how to expand existing accounts by looking at the kinds of jobs that they're not catching. They can figure out where to go get new accounts, and they can figure out where to go get talent. Because if company A is hiring for a certain kind of position, 6 months ago, then that there's somebody there. If you're hiring for the same position for company B, that there's somebody at company A that's got that job, right? And so,
diabolical.
It's
so, right. so you get the free training It sounds like a recruiter with the right data can get the free training from another company, and they strategically find them at 6 months and then bring them on to get them up to speed, probably for less money.
The good BDMs in recruiting firms are all over this kind of stuff. They see top to bottom at the relationship management level, all the way down to the very tactical, where can we go to find candidates to fill these jobs, and where do we focus on developing relationships with job seekers? And so there's a much richer pool of information that's becoming available. I would say we're still early in that game. I've been at this for 10 years now, and we've seen the recruiting use cases really start to take off over the last 2 to 3 years, I would say, and it's accelerating even more.
Is there not a specific industry that WageScape prefers to work with when it comes to recruiting data?
No, pretty much everyone can use our intelligence, and so the use cases are a little bit different, right? If you're looking at, like, for example, if you have an hourly population that's incredibly wage sensitive, right? They'll move for 50 cents, a 50-cent increase per hour. You need to know who your competitors are for that talent within, a couple miles of every location that you've got, because they'll literally go down the street. Rightly so, by the way, because they're putting food on the table and they're really struggling to do it for their families, right? So you're hyper attuned to that kind of environment. And so, that's where the location data that we have, the ability to show, what's going on, or, in a very tight radius around every location is really powerful. When you're looking at, recruiting jobs that, could be hybrid or remote jobs, the ability to look across the country and the world to see what are trends, who's hiring similar kinds of jobs, what's going on with skills in those jobs, what's going on with wages in those jobs, and where might there be, some market arbitrage opportunities where we can place talent in a lower cost area versus a higher cost area. So that's a different use case entirely for a different segment of the employee population. And there's lots of different, flavors of those kinds of things. So no, there's no one industry. We deal with data for all industries, all levels of jobs. And it's useful for lots of different things. About 2/3 of our business comes from either recruiting or compensation management. The other 1/3 comes from financial services, who are interested in what hiring patterns portend for business outlook in folks. So, doesn't matter what type of job you're hiring for, what industry. There's, this idea of, a more transparent labor market and more readily accessible intelligence is hugely valuable for all of them.
And for someone to say, hey, all right, yes, you're right. AI has it. I know y'all utilize AI. Could I not just get this same? Could I not just go to ChatGPT and get this same data from them as opposed to us engaging with you? Is that a true statement? They can get that same data from just going to ChatGPT?
So you can go and ask, whether it's ChatGPT or, Gemini or one of the others, you can go and ask them, what should a marketing specialist in Las Vegas, Nevada be paid? And you will get an answer. As of right now, it's not a really good answer. And if you want to know what influences that pay, you're not going to get a lot of insight there as well. You'll get a lot of things that are authoritatively stated. So the models are only as good as the data that they're built on, and we're the ones providing the data, right? So, most of the data that we provide actually goes into other applications. It doesn't go into AI yet, and we don't use AI to come up with the answers. We use AI for processing related things. But our data doesn't go into AI applications or models yet. At some point, I think it probably will. I don't know when. It's kind of risky from a business standpoint to turn your core asset of the business out to the world through AI, but we'll figure that out. We'll figure it out. So,
because like you said,
but in the meantime,
cycle is weeks.
it opens up a whole series of questions, which is, what is truth coming from an AI, model from, one of these LLMs and the agents that are derivative of that and so forth. What is truth anymore? And you've got, just like you have to be careful how you discern what you receive when you search online, you have to be careful, especially diligent about what you get when you're dealing with AI. And in some cases where the risk is really low, you don't really care whether it's 80% accurate or 99% accurate. In other cases, you want to make sure that you're as close to pristine as possible. So AI needs oversight.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think the term that they use is hallucinate. AI will just, some instances, just come up with what they think you want to hear. And in order for them to accomplish that goal, they'll just make it up. Whereas, and to your point, somebody can just go to one of those AI, Gemini, whoever it is, and ask that question, but not have the supporting data all the time, and be able to decipher that without, working with somebody like you and the people that you work with. Yeah,
you're right. And it's complicated further, going back to what we were talking about earlier, which is whatever your experience with AI is, it's as bad as it's ever going to be. Right? It's just getting better, and it's getting better at an alarming rate. So it's really difficult to say what's going to be left, because our whole frame of reference is changing fairly rapidly. I mean, 2 years ago, none of us could have predicted how many of us use AI today, even if we don't use it very much. None of us could have predicted that. None of us could have predicted it. You could talk to, a machine, and it'll give you back a very, very intelligent answer on very complicated questions. And how easy that would be. Well, just think about what's going to be there in 6 months or a year. We can't imagine it. The closest we can do is go and look at what's coming out of the tech hubs in the world and what those guys are starting to do, because that's going to show up on our doorstep within a matter of months, I think.
And you did mention that at the top of the call, pay attention to who's on the forefront. What industries and our countries would you say are on the forefront?
Well, I think here in the United States, we are. I think, so tech in general is on the forefront. So the companies that are part of building the future around AI themselves are at the forefront of figuring out how to use it. But there's lots of different applications. I mean, so you could look at, how tech is automating jobs and look to the tech companies for that. You could look at how AI is revolutionizing science by looking at the folks that are in, in biomedical applications, and the astounding things that are going on with healthcare in terms of healthcare research that will fundamentally change all of our lives when they're put into practice, and the leaps and bounds that are happening there. So there's lots of different places where the forefront is being, discovered every day. So I would say whatever field you're in, just, look for the folks that are, really the leading, the ones that are driving innovation. And I guarantee AI is in the middle of it.
Oh yeah, I just speaking of the health part, I just took a genetic methylation test, and I'm waiting for the results. But one of the things that you said, that most people do is they take those test results, and of course they go off of whatever their doctors say, but then they input it into AI, and AI can make even more deeper connections to those results.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah. So I think that, we talked earlier about kind of the, that there's going to be opportunity, and then there's going to be really negative disruption. But I think one of the areas where there's the most opportunity for society overall is in healthcare.
Oh yeah.
No question.
And disruption, that's one of those words that does have a negative connotation, but before anything can move forward, what came before must first be disrupted. Is there anything? Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, as entrepreneurs, we all love the idea of disruption because we're all assuming we're going to be the ones doing the disruption, right?
Yeah.
Okay? The idea of disruption, though, means something totally different when you're the one being disrupted.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it definitely like a period out of nowhere in your sentence, right?
Exactly.
Is there no question that I should have asked you that I did not?
Yeah, we could cover lots of things. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk to you and have a chance to reach your audiences. This conversation could go on for a long, long time. And so if folks are more interested in what we're doing or more interested in connecting, I'd be happy to do so. It's easy to reach me through our website or through LinkedIn. So
okay. And being that it's so easy, please remind the people, who are you, what do you do, and what's the best way to get in touch as far as what's the actual URL?
So I'm Cary Sparrow. I'm the founder and CEO of WageScape, a labor market intelligence firm. The easiest way to reach us is to check us out on our website, www.wagescape.com, or you can reach me at Cary Sparrow on LinkedIn.
All right. Thank you, Cary Sparrow. This has been another episode of the Entreprenudist Podcast, the place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. I've been your host, Randolph Love III, and until then, we'll see you.